in today's conversation. I'm really honored that you're here to talk to me and just share some insights today.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited to be here. This is a conversation that I'm also just really excited to have.
Yeah. So I'm going to kick us off, just kind of set the tone for the call today. So that way, anyone who's watching, they know essentially, as you know and are well aware, because this is part of what you do, and the work that you do, that with the job market, and you talk to a lot of people, just from different walks of life, whether it be job seekers, hiring managers, and other kind of coaches and professionals, and really getting insights into what is going on in the job market in today's day and age. And a lot has changed. And so I figured it would be really great, because I have, a community of job seekers out there, people that are in their careers trying to figure out what is next, and just kind of like being able to see what is out there in the world. And a lot of people that I talk to have been either in their traditional like 9 to 5s, or some people have been faced with like layoffs and just some unfortunate situation. So it's like, how do I start to think about what work looks like differently?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's where, like, I know someone who actually is amazing. And Alyshia, I would love to have you introduce yourself and essentially today really talk about what it has been like for you in your personal journey in freelancing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yes, I'm Alyshia. I am a work-life journalist. I graduated from college in 2019. I was going into 2020, so we were going into the pandemic, not long after I had graduated. And at that point, I started off actually as a freelance journalist. And then just a couple years ago in 2023, I was an editorial fellow at Business Insider, which is basically a short term employee. I was hired on for 6 months. And then when that fellowship came to an end, I went back into freelance. And although freelance is not, I wouldn't describe it as easy, it became a lot easier after having that fellowship, because I had built a byline in the business space, which is very much what I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. And just, I guess, a couple of questions when we think about the work that you do now. So it's like you had established that relationship through that role that you had. So that was that for you, kind of that door open to really start to gain some of that freelance work, or how did that transpire
Yeah.
for you?
So definitely with freelance with journalism is it's really about building a byline. And that can be really hard for people at first because it's like in order to get an article published, editors they want to see another article, some like past work that you've done. So it's like this
Mm,
chicken and egg type thing. So at first it was really hard for me until I got that fellowship with Business Insider and I started to write, 3, 5 articles a week and those articles were becoming published. And then when my fellowship ended, it became a little bit easier to first write for Business Insider because I had those relationships with those editors still, but then also to write for other publications that were comparable, like Fast Company and Success and Inc.
mhm.
Publications that were also in the business space.
Gotcha. Okay. And what would you say for you has been some of the biggest learnings, like as you have gone throughout this journey up until this point?
You have to, well, being as though when you work in freelance, you very much work by yourself, right? Or
Yeah.
you don't have coworkers. So really, first networking is important for everybody, but not just networking with people who can provide me with opportunities, but people who are my peers. Um, I with freelance for a while, I wasn't really sure how much other people were making. I was just kind of going off of what editors were telling me. So having those conversations with people who were doing the same thing that I wanted to do and that I was doing was really helpful to know how much to charge.
Okay.
I think knowing your worth is really important. Freelance, sometimes that's a little hard because you are working with editors who are sometimes they're kind of viewed as up here and you're kind of like down here a little bit. But no,
Right.
coming in and being like, no, I have a lot to offer, and really sticking with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really great call out. And I love how you bring up the fact that you were not just networking with people for opportunities, but with peers, because sometimes when you just don't know what you don't know and you're learning, being able to hear from others that are either on a similar pathway or maybe a few steps ahead that can give you some of that perspective is really important. And then I heard you talk about like finances, right? So, like, what do you charge? So, it sounds like in the beginning maybe it was more of they like the editors were saying like, hey, well, this will be the point, the price point, essentially this is what we offer for this writing, but then it became more, now you're able to negotiate or to pitch your pricing. Like, is that how the dynamic has shifted?
Yeah, I'm able to negotiate my pricing a little bit. And I mean, there are a lot of publications who will tell you, like this is our cap on how much we pay freelancers.
Okay.
And I have gotten to a point where I do have enough assignments where I am able to turn things down a little bit if needed. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good call out. And I guess, do you ever run into, because one of the questions that came up from the group is that in freelancing, do you run into issue of like non-competes, or that whole concept of conflict of interest, where maybe certain
Mm.
publications might say, hey, like, you can't work with this publication because they're our competitor or something. Like, have you run into any like situations like that?
No. So when you work as a freelancer, you don't really have to worry about non-competes. But if
Okay.
I were to be a full-time employee, such as at Business Insider, they might come to me and say, hey, you can't be writing for a comparable company such as Fast Company or Inc. or Entrepreneur, like that kind of thing. Um, so no, as a freelancer, you don't actually have to really worry about that. You are seen as your own boss, which is both a blessing and a curse, depending on how you're looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess kind of on that note, when we think about being your own boss, so that ties into finances. So you're responsible, I'm assuming, for like your taxes and things like
Mhm.
that. So how have you been able to like learn and juggle that part of it? Because that's like, I feel like its own skill in itself. And so is that something where you're managing that on your own, or have you opted in to like have an accountant, or like how are you managing your financial aspect there?
Yeah, absolutely. No, so right now it's something that I manage just on my own. So there was definitely a learning curve. I also take outside of taxes, like I take investing classes, which are really important in
Okay.
terms of my retirement because, I don't really have like a 401k, that kind of thing, being a freelancer. But yeah, I've had to learn how to do my own taxes and to keep that really organized. That's really important. But yeah, taxes are a big thing that you have to factor in when you're a freelancer. So you're setting aside at least like 30% of your income. You're setting
Mhm.
aside an emergency fund in case you do owe a little bit more than what you were thinking.
Yeah, that's actually a really great call out, is just like how you juggle your finances. And it sounds like you have personally decided you set aside money specifically for taxes, because like you need at least this amount, 30% for taxes that come up, and then having that emergency fund. And it sounds like that is just like rainy day, maybe is it it's just for more so when you don't maybe have as many like clients, or working with as many publications, or if the work is slower, is that kind of where that comes into play, or is it just like you've always had that like backup fund?
I think it's important for me no matter what. Even if I had a full time job, I think having an emergency fund would always be really important to me. But especially with a freelance income, when I say freelance income, what I mean is I'm project based. So I get
Mhm.
paid per assignment. So some months I might be selling 9 articles a month. Some months I could be selling less. Some months I could be selling a lot more. So making sure that all of my expenses are covered, whether I'm having a good month or a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good call out too. And do you ever find, I know you said now like you have learned a lot through the freelance work that you have done. Do you ever find periods where you like questions still come up where you're just like, I don't know if this is for me, or like how do you feel just overall, just when we think about the world of freelancing? Do you think that this is going to be something long term that you're always going to be doing, or do you think that at a certain point you might decide to shift gears?
Yeah, so it's something that I'm always very back and forth on. I love, I will say, I really like that I work in an industry where freelance is an option. So
Mm,
in journalism, layoffs are really big, and so whether I'm working full time, I always want to have my foot in freelance, because it does allow you to make an extra income. I think if the right opportunity came along where I could go full time, I definitely would. Um, but being able to financially support myself by just working for myself is something I'm really happy with, like as of now.
yeah, absolutely. And do you take any like classes or anything? Just are there any skills that you have to gain specifically for like freelancing and just staying dialed into like the trends of freelancing or anything like that? Or is it just more of like being connected with people that are in the freelancing world in your space?
I'm not currently in any classes. I haven't been, other than my investing course, which is outside of journalism. But a lot of it really is networking.
Okay.
If somebody said to me today, like, I would like to learn how to freelance, I would say, okay, the biggest thing that you're going to need to get started is what conversations would you like to be a part of? Right. So, like,
Mm,
what conversations are already happening that are big today? How can you get involved with those? And one big way would be to connect with editors who are publishing those types of articles, that type of work. LinkedIn and Twitter is a really great resource for that.
okay.
And learning how to pitch, learning how to pitch an idea, and understanding that no matter how long you do it, how good you are at doing it, not every editor is going to respond to every single pitch, and having to be okay with that.
Yeah. How do you juggle like and manage? Because rejection sucks. Like we're let's just be honest. Like nobody wants to be in that position of rejection, but we grow from rejection as well. So it's like that redirection. How I guess do you recover like from those moments where say like you feel like you had a really great idea and a really strong pitch, but maybe it didn't end up going in your favor. Like how do you manage your emotions and how do you work through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So rejection definitely does sting. And there's times for me today where it still does. Like I know a lot
Mhm.
of writers will be like, oh, like I've gotten so experienced with it, I just now brush it off my shoulder like it's nothing. And I'm like, that is, at least for me, that is not true. There are times where it is still hard, and it is
Yeah.
okay to say it's hard. Um, but there have been times also where I have gotten rejected from something, and I've then taken that idea elsewhere and it became better. So just recently, an editor at one of the companies that I frequently work with, she put me on an article and we were going back and forth on it. I had signed the contract, it was going great. And then the editor came back and was like, never mind, I don't want this
Mm,
article anymore. And I remember getting that email and being like, oh, like this really stinks. Like I was kind of relying on it for that month's income,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I was pretty bummed out about it. And then I took that same idea and I pitched it to another publication. They picked it up, they published it, and it became like the top story of the week for them. So I was like, I am kind of glad that it didn't work out
Yeah.
with the other company because it did so well. It performed really well.
Hopefully that person read that article too and
I know.
see.
I should link it to her.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
it's like it's vulnerable to share something like that, but I appreciate that because it helps. I think even for me, I think about sometimes when you get that rejection and then maybe we shy away from like pushing past the rejection that we got, and for us it becomes a hard stop and a hard no versus like
Yeah.
how can I turn that no into a yes. And so for you that was like you got this no, but you didn't let that deter you. And you actually took that and like, you're like, hey, actually, you know what? I have other, you know, um, editors that I work with and let me try again. And
Yeah.
you were like really believed in your idea to say like, let me pitch this to someone else. And you got that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have so many stories like that. I before getting my fellowship with Business Insider, I thought I was possibly going to be getting a fellowship with BuzzFeed. And like at last minute, I got rejected from it. I got rejected from the job. And that one was a rejection I think back on today that was really crushing for me at the time. But then 2 weeks later, I got the job with Business Insider, and still today it's the best job that I've had.
Yeah. I love that. And it's that redirection. It's just like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure sometimes you still have those moments where you have like the what if moments, but it ended up being a really positive interaction for you, because then you were able to then go to Business Insider, and you've been working with them for a while, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I freelance with them, and them opening that door for me to work with them as a fellow has definitely opened up other doors for me as a freelancer writing for other places.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of like kind of in that realm of like networking, because it's opened up other doors for you. So when you network, is it like you're attending events, or is it just through the people that you're meeting through the freelance work that you're doing, and then they introduce you to other people? Like, do you mind sharing a little bit more on like advice around the concept of networking? Because I know that can be a sticking point for a lot of people. It's just like, how do I network? How do I get in front of people? What has worked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it has actually come from pitching my ideas. So finding those editors in order to become published, in order to publish an article, you have to find the editor who publishes that type of content, which is actually pretty easy to find on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google. And then I would send them my pitch, and I'd be like, these are some of the past articles that I have written in the past. And when they put me on a story, they usually start putting me on other stories as well. So I would say that's how I've built a lot of my relationships with the editors that I work with. Is I got one assignment with them and it turned into others. But another way, just recently, I got an email from an editor at USA Today, and he was like, I got your name and your email from your editor at Business Insider. We would love for you to start writing for us. And so it happens that way too. Like if I have a good relationship with an editor, there's times where they recommend me for things, as I always would for them. And it's really important to keep those relationships that you do have positive, because they can lead you to other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that call out. And I guess question on the relationship building aspect.
Yeah.
So I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's probably like certain editors that maybe you have stronger rapport with than others. Have you ever had like situations where like, I don't know, you've bumped heads with anyone, and like how do you like maintain those relationships, even when maybe sometimes they're a little bit more of a challenge, knowing that like the relationship building part is so important?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think there are some common things with being a writer in journalism that certainly don't feel good. For example, your editors, when you're working with an editor, it's very common for them to tell you that they're busy. And you're like, oh my gosh,
Okay.
I'm busy too. I'm working as hard as I can.
Yeah.
So you get things like that, and it doesn't feel good. And it comes with the understanding that it's partially how the industry is, right? At the same time, I want to be careful with that, not taking that as an excuse to allow somebody to treat you poorly. I am fortunate I'm at a point where if I don't feel that I'm being treated well by an editor or a publication, I do have other publications that I'm working for where I don't necessarily need to continue writing for them, but doing what I can on my end to have that understanding. People are busy. We are communicating over email. So trying not to take things personally, especially in a newsroom where things are moving so quickly.
Mhm.
And yeah, really appreciating that I do have editors that treat me really, really well, and gravitating towards them a little bit more.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
No, that's a good call out. Yeah. And do you have to be like based in a certain location since you are freelance, or can you basically work from anywhere since you are freelance?
Yeah, that
Freelance.
is one really nice thing about freelance is you can do it from anywhere, um, as long as you have an internet connection and a laptop, you are good. Um, Taxes, you got to be careful with that. If you are writing for, I have one publication I write for that's based in the UK. So
Okay.
that became a little different. But yeah, you can write from anywhere.
That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I didn't in the UK. Look at you. You're over here going global. I see you over there. I love that for you. And
Thank you.
curious. So I've noticed, like, I've seen your journey, and I'm so, like, I love everything that you're doing, and so grateful. You know, I'm like, I consider you my friend, and so I've seen your
Yeah.
growth. You know, and it's been so like just beautiful to watch you, like how you have over specifically, I would say over like the past year and a half, I've really seen this like transformation where I'm seeing you even like come more and more like out of your comfort zone because I see you like posting a lot more on social media. So I see you like on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and on Instagram. And so I would love to, if you're willing to share, just like how like are you like focusing on personal branding or like kind of what is the inspiration because I've really seen a tremendous like jump for you and really branching out and I'm like
Yeah.
that's it's so amazing to see like all of the content that you're putting out there so I'm just curious like what inspired you to like really start getting out there and posting content.
I would say I've been working towards my fear of one of my goals this year was I don't want to be afraid to be seen trying. I can post a
Hmm.
video today on LinkedIn
Yeah,
and maybe it won't do well, and that is perfectly okay. Um, it's I'm trying, and
yeah,
that's more than what I can say for the content that I was posting last year, where I wasn't really posting as much, you know. And it can lead to an opportunity, and I
yeah,
think that to me is more exciting than the fear of it not working. Sure, like I posted a video today and it might not do well. The video that I post tomorrow, maybe it will. Um, the article that I write and publish today, it could lead to a byline elsewhere, kind of like Business Insider led to USA Today. Like things like that can happen for you at any point. The tables can
yeah,
turn for you at any point, and I find that really exciting now, more than scary. Like,
yeah,
oh, like I don't want people to see me not doing well. Maybe
yeah.
they will. Maybe they won't see me do well, but maybe this will work for me.
You're going out there and you're doing it. You're doing it anyways. And I think
Yeah.
that's the power is that you're doing it anyways. There like was there a catalyst? Like was there like a moment for you that a defining moment where you're just like you decided like, you know what, I am going all in and I am making this decision to push past this fear and like the because the fear of like being visible, that's a real fear that a lot of people like I know for myself that's even today I still carry that fear and I post
Mhm.
a lot of content, but it can still be scary to, you know,
Yeah.
put content out there. Was there something for you that was like a defining moment where you're just like, you know what, I'm doing it. Like this is, I'm committing to myself, I'm honoring myself, and I'm just going for it.
I don't know if there was actually a specific moment. I think um, I really wanted to own my freelance this past year.
Mhm.
There have been times, and even now, where I'm like, I really would like to go full time. I would like to be a full time
Yeah.
journalist where I'm sitting on a team, and I'm like, I don't want to wait for that anymore. Like what I'm doing with freelance is just as cool. It's just as amazing, and I really want to own that and not wait until I have the full time job to be really proud of the work that I'm doing. And I think
I
I
love
just came
that.
to that realization this past year. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to wait. Like my work is great as it is now, and hopefully the hope would be that it continues to get better.
Absolutely. What would
Yeah.
you say? I know you've had some really great wins. You just gave one a few minutes ago about the article, essentially the pitch that you did that got a no, and then you took it somewhere else, got a yes, and then it was like one of the top, right, for the week
Yeah.
on the yeah, which is amazing. What are a few other wins, if you don't mind sharing, that stand out in your mind over the past couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. I I would say having some articles perform really well. I had one at Business Insider that was like one of the top stories of the month um, for readers, the amount of readers that it brought in. Um, it did not happen, and I think it is perfectly okay. Like it's okay. I had one article that was being considered to be optioned for a movie in Hollywood.
Oh,
And
what?
I was, like as a writer, that there
What?
is 1 billion steps in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
But the idea that producers were like, this is a cool article and we think that it could perform well in Hollywood was very
Yeah.
exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that goes back to I'm not afraid to be seen trying. Like, where did that come from? I think it's having those little wins and being like, this turned into this. Like, what could this turn into?
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
that evidence you receive, that evidence, that like that confirmation, and you're depositing that evidence of confidence into yourself
Yeah.
through those moments, right? And that's really cool. I'm like, I didn't even know that. Do you mind me asking, or are you able to share like the general idea of like the article that was being,
Yeah.
considered? Yeah.
So yeah, I interview people who are in all different types of careers, right? Like I do HR, business, like recruiters, career coaches, that kind of thing. But I also interview people who have like really cool jobs, like cool jobs as in, or jobs that you don't see commonly.
Mm,
And
okay.
this girl works as a loyalty tester, where she was online testing to see if she was being hired by the girlfriends. I should say that first, to see if their boyfriends would cheat. She's
Oh
called
my,
a loyalty tester, and that is what she does for work.
oh my
And
goodness.
I interviewed her on her career, on how she made that her full-time job, testing fidelity. Um, and we published the article, and yeah, it got picked up. Producers thought it was funny. Like, they're like, that would be such an amazing movie on a
Yeah,
loyalty
that
test.
I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. That is so wild.
Yeah, and I guess that led to my first time on the radio. It got picked up by a radio station. I had to go on the radio and talk about that article, which was funny.
That's so cool. And then I guess how do how do you find people? Like, so I guess part of pitching means you have to find like the people, right, that you would talk to and create the concept and essentially then pitch it as the idea for an article, correct? Is that
Yes,
okay?
yes, that is correct.
How, like, what's the thought process, if you are able to disclose a little bit around just like when you're making the decision on like, hey, I have this idea, I want to pitch it, like, and deciding who, maybe you're going to reach out to, or like how do you find people that are like infidelity testers, or like how do you even uncover people like that?
Like the people that I'm interviewing, or
Yeah.
that's a good question. So TikTok is a really good resource for me when it comes to, we call them sources, the people that I interview. Um, TikTok's a really good one. And because I'm in the business space, LinkedIn is another. So
Okay.
a lot of times they say, you see a conversation that's doing really well on LinkedIn, people are resonating with it. It is going to make for a good article because it's a conversation that people want to hear. So
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn looking for people. And then for like fun stories like that, it's TikTok. I will see a video do well, or I'll see something really interesting, and I will pitch it to my editors.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I would say
Because
TikTok. It depends on the
yeah.
niche that you want to be in, but
Okay.
TikTok can be a good one. LinkedIn more for business.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I guess on the niche side of things, did you get to choose the niche that you're in, or did you kind of like fall into the niche, and how did that all transpire?
I guess I kind of fell into it. So when I got the fellowship with Business Insider, the team that I was working for kind of created the root of the articles that I was writing. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I left, I was writing comparable articles, whether it was for them or similar publications.
Hmm.
Thankfully, I really liked it. I really love business. I like talking to career coaches and people in HR, people who are job seekers, people who advise for job seekers. I find that to be a conversation that's never ending and is
Yeah.
always changing. But really, any type of writing that you can think of is something there's a niche for. I know writers who write about pets. that is their niche. I know writers who do fashion, or maybe it's a little bit more broad, and they do lifestyle. So one day they're writing about cooking, and one day they're writing about travel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just you can
Yeah.
find your niche, and you don't have to feel like you have to stick to just one. Sometimes I do lifestyle stories too. Um, but gravitating towards business has allowed me to become published in more business publications, I'd say.
Gotcha. Okay. And then do you see yourself future state kind of maybe going into a different niche, or have you tried like exploring a different niche, or are you just like happy, with the niche that you're in right now?
I'm really happy with the niche I'm in. I think, like, looking towards the future, I see myself staying in business.
Okay.
Otherwise, maybe going towards lifestyle content. I think that's a lot of fun to write. One style that's not my favorite personally is shopping. So you'll see articles such as like on BuzzFeed, which I've written for quite a bit, where I'm writing a little blurb about this dress that you can buy, and it like links to Amazon. So affiliate marketing, commerce writing. Some
Yeah.
people really enjoy that. I have friends who really love it. For me personally, it's that one's not my favorite.
Mm, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
And
more
that's good.
stories.
Yeah, so it's like the storytelling part for you is
Yeah.
really what you look for. Yeah. And then I guess on the writing side, when we think about just how your writing skills have developed, what would you say are maybe the biggest like resources that you have personally, used, or like how are you continuously kind of like honing your craft to make sure that like you're staying kind of like up to date with the trends of like writing, in today's market?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say honestly, it really just comes from continuing to do it, continuing to write, and working, especially as a freelancer. You work with so many different editors.
Yeah.
Um, you learn from each of them, and yeah, I would say it comes from just continuing to do it.
Yeah.
You can take classes. You can take classes to become a better writer. You can read a lot, and I think all of those things help. But I think it really comes from sitting down and writing,
Yeah.
um, learning from your editor's feedback, and improving with each article.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Question about like the more so on the market. So like we know, and you talk to a lot of people in the career space, and so I know a lot of conversations come up around different topics as it relates to the job market and just individual career, ideas and whatnot. So there's this whole buzz on artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Everybody's talking about it. For you, do you see that being, for you personally, an area of concern at all, like with like writing and journalism, or do you just see that like it is going to like come into the mix, but just more so enhance the, how you work, or I guess for people that maybe are thinking about going into writing, or maybe even in the journalism space that have some kind of fears around how AI is going to come in, like what are your thoughts, if you're willing to share a little bit
Yeah,
there?
definitely. Yeah, so there is this really big fear right now with AI coming into journalism. I think that the one area where I look out a little bit is a lot of what I do is interviews. A lot of it is reporting. It's talking to people, and it's storytelling. Um, but there is this risk of AI coming in, and they say like replacing writers. I don't necessarily believe that that's going to happen. I think it's scary at the moment, but
Yeah.
it's going to fade out, or we're going to start utilizing it as a tool and not be like replacing people. Is
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard because it's so new. People are like, I don't know what's going to happen, and I kind of feel the same way. But I don't think writers are going to be replaced, or journalism completely is going to be replaced.
Yeah.
But I will say, for me, more than ever, it's important for me to make sure that I have other tools versus just reporting. So that's, I think, maybe one of the reasons actually I did start getting into making video content this past year.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to have different tools to be able to show editors and to be able to show employers.
Absolutely. And when you say like tools, like just different ways that you're able to like tell stories and express yourself, like being able to show, and through the video content.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes I am writing articles, but then I'm making video content. So
Mhm.
um, being, I don't know what the word would be, being able to be a little less replaced. I feel like that sounds so negative. Or having different
Like
areas where I can show editors what I can do.
versatile, like where you have different
Yeah,
areas. Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. And I think to you kind of what you're saying, and I'm actually this actually brings up a question that somebody shared with like kind of diversifying what you do. Have you already, which you, and the video content you're doing, but are you thinking about like other types of freelancing now that you have gotten your bearings in the world of writing? Like, have you explored other types of freelancing at all, or is that something that's on your radar, or not so much?
I think one thing I would really consider is doing video content for companies. A lot of companies are actually hiring people to make videos for their social media platforms, whether that's through kind of being like a correspondent um, or even through UGC. That's an
Yeah.
option for people to be able to advertise like products for different companies. I think I would really like to be able to do that if I could find a freelance role where I could make videos for them to share onto their own TikToks or their LinkedIn pages. I would do that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. And I mean, you're already on your way because you're starting to create video content. And I've
Yeah.
seen like some of your content, and I'm like, this is so cool just to see the videos that in the
Thank you.
concepts that you put together. It's really neat because it's like seeing your creative mind at work through your video content.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point there is it goes back to what I was saying earlier is I don't want to have to wait. I don't have to wait for a publication to hire me to create videos for them. I can create it and I can share it on LinkedIn and these people that I would like to work with they're seeing it. They're seeing what I'm doing without having to get a full time job with them.
Yeah. Are you actively like connecting, say with, I mean, I know you've built up like your network, and that's been like years in the making,
Yeah.
but are you like now starting to say connect with more people? Like if you identify a company or just someone in the business realm that you're interested in potentially collaborating in future state, are you just proactively connecting with those people now, or
Yeah, definitely. So, some of the articles or some of the companies that I write for as a freelancer are companies that I would love to work for full time. So, with my freelance, I'm able to publish these articles with them. And as these articles come out, I find it really important to make sure that these people, these decision makers, are seeing them. I share my articles with them. An article comes out, and I'm like, "This is the publication I would like to write for." Um, I'm going to share it with the editor in chief. Like I'm going to share
yeah,
it with her. Um, I currently have, I would say, top 5 companies that I would have an interest in writing for, and I'm able to tell you, the top 2 to 3 decision makers at each one, and making sure that I'm engaging with them, sharing my articles with them, or LinkedIn is again a really great platform for engaging with them. Um,
yeah,
like I think I say Business Insider specifically, like a publication I would love to write for full time. I want to make sure the top editor at that company, she knows my name. Um, and I do. So I do that through sharing my work with her and utilizing social media responsibly for
yeah.
her to see my work.
How do you push past the, because and this is me making assumptions, so again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure there must be sometimes like fear or like that self-doubt creeps up when you're like, hey, I'm going to share this out with this person. Like if that does come up for you sometimes, like how do you push yourself past, that fear and those limiting beliefs essentially?
Yeah, because it does, right? Like, what if
Yeah.
I share this article with this editor, and especially on LinkedIn, you can tell that they read it and that they don't respond. right?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to, I don't want to be afraid to be seen trying. You do have to do it responsibly, and by that I mean I probably shouldn't be messaging the editor-in-chief every single day on social media. Um, but if an editor sees what I'm doing and they're like, I don't want to, they don't want to work with me,
Mhm.
that has to be okay because I'm doing everything I can on my end. As long
Yeah.
as I'm sharing responsibly, being respectful about it, and I'm putting in the work, I think it's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say for you, like if you had to label your top like three biggest learnings over like from the start of your career until now, what would you say that those top three items would be for you?
I would say number one, it's always really important to strive to be good to work with and strive to be really kind. That's just important no matter the industry. I think that's important no matter where you work. But when you work in an industry such as journalism, layoffs happen a lot and
Mm,
tables turn really quickly. And I think the way that you treat people, it really matters. You don't want to burn bridges just because you don't need it right now. Maybe one day
yeah.
you will, and you should treat people well. And I think that's important no matter what. But I would say that's one. I would say it's important to know your worth. Um, not everybody is going to treat you kindly, and not everybody is going to respond to your pitches. Not every editor is going to be nice to you. Um, and knowing when to walk away from that. I think
Mm,
that's one that I've learned, one that I'm learning.
yeah.
You deserve to be treated well. Um, Number three, I think it goes back to that networking. Make sure that you're really building relationships with people, and not just people that you want something from, an opportunity from, but peers, and being able to help people and being willing to ask for that help in return. Building relationships and friendships is really important.
Yeah, I think those are really, really great learnings and call outs. And um, on, I guess, kind of along those lines, when we think about just not just like learnings, but for you, if you say, I know you gave some advice in the beginning and you talked a lot about networking, but is there any other advice, like, say, for someone who is on the fence of like, should I start freelancing? Should I not? Or are there any considerations like that you would wish that somebody would have told you, before you had gotten into freelancing that you think would be helpful for people to know?
I would say before going into freelance, I would actually maybe start a little bit small. Um, I wouldn't just jump into it. Like I wouldn't like quit your job tomorrow and be like, okay, like I'm gonna be a freelancer full time. But what you can do is take 3 to 5 pitches that you have and start sending them out, and seeing where that takes you. You know, it doesn't have to be this big thing. You don't have to make it your full time career. You can if you want to, but like I said, even if I go into journalism full time, where I'm sitting at a company full time, I hope to always have my foot in freelance. It's a really great opportunity first to build an income for yourself, or for me personally,
Yeah,
building a byline.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So don't
And
I would say don't be worried to start small.
okay. And so you would say start small, stick with your full-time job. Like that would be your advice, like in terms of how you would like if you were giving someone that advice, like, hey, don't just jump like all in, start small, stay with your job, like feel it out first and then you can kind of ease into it. And if you feel like, yes, I'm ready to make the jump and go
Yeah.
all in on it, then then do so.
Yeah, because I do think it is hard financially at first, like I
Mm,
was saying in the beginning, freelance got easier for me after my fellowship, and that was because I had built up a byline, in
yeah.
order to be able to get more opportunities. And, I mean, I guess I kind of jumped right into it. I guess I did, of leaving, graduating college. That's what I tried doing. But fortunately, I was I was really young. I was still living, still living with my family. I was able to ease into the job market a little bit. Um, but yeah, it gets easier after you build a byline.
Okay.
I don't know if I would necessarily recommend just jumping in, quitting your
Yeah.
job tomorrow, unless you feel like you're safe to do that.
Yeah. And that some of that might come from like thinking about like savings and things that you talked about, like having that like
Yeah.
emergency fund and things, where maybe that would be a scenario where, hey, if you have the savings and you want to jump all in, live your best life, and go for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
how do you feel, out of curiosity? I know you talked about like if when, I always like to say when, I don't like to say if, I like to claim it. So when you do find that full-time opportunity,
Yeah.
how do you feel that is going to like, will that shift anything for you when you think about being more in a traditional, because I'm assuming you'll have to be in a more traditional like schedule, um, versus now it sounds like you have a lot of like flexibility. So like, how do you think you'll adapt, to that change? And do you have any concerns around adapting to that sort of change?
I don't think I have too many concerns. I think that the biggest change for me is I would be working for a company full time. So I would have to cut back on my freelance because freelance really is what I do full time now. So I
Okay.
wouldn't be putting in the same amount of hours. Maybe I could be writing for the same publications, hopefully. I could get one thing you have to really consider is um, if I go full time, they could be like, no, you can't be writing for our competitors, and you have to
Mm,
really you have to really consider that. You have to consider if that's worth it or not.
yeah.
So I guess that could be a concern, but I think I would have to cut back on my freelance in order to go full time. But still, I would want to keep those relationships with those publications really good, and hopefully continue to write for them, even if it's not to the same extent that I was before.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. And I guess when we think about like longer term kind of goals, just out of curiosity, envisioning yourself like 5 years from now,
Yeah.
what kind of, where do you see yourself going? If you're willing to share just maybe a couple of your longer term goals here.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be, right, with claiming
Yes.
it.
I claim
Um,
it.
yeah, I will be a full-time journalist. I will be sitting on a payroll at a company
Yeah.
where I'm treated really well and my work is valued. Um, I will be still freelancing. I will always be in freelance no matter where my career goes. Um, I will be an author. I would love
Okay.
I would love to get my first book deal and to always be keeping up with my content creating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ready. So author of a book, is it going to be like nonfiction or
Well,
fiction?
I see myself doing two things. I would actually really love to be like in the children book space. Um, so outside of
Interesting.
journalism, it's fun. Like I am very much into creative writing. Um,
Okay.
but also I am somebody who's kept a journal every single day for 10 years, as of this year, 10 years. I
Wow.
would love to have my own journal, like with a book publisher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will. You will. We're claiming that for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
That
We're
is
claiming it.
so cool.
But yeah, also I always have a list of the publications that I would like to be published in. Right.
Mm,
So it's funny because like Business Insider was once one of them. Um, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, that is
yeah.
on my list today. And I would like to think by that time, within 5 years, I will be there.
You will. Like, we're snaps for that. We're claiming it right now. I mean, you already, like, you had it on your in your journal and you wrote it down. And I'm like a firm believer of when you write things out,
Mhm.
and it's proven. I can't remember the stat around it, but when you write your goals out, you're exponentially, like, there's a higher probability of you achieving that goal. just by
Yeah.
writing it out, because a lot of people actually don't, they don't take the time to write out their goals in that way.
Yeah, and whether you believe in manifesting or not, what
Yeah.
it does is every day when you write down your goals, which I do, I write down my top 10 goals every day as if I've already achieved them. What it does is it kind of reminds you of what your goals are and where you
Yeah.
are going. And if you can go through that process and you can ask yourself, okay, like what is one thing, just one thing I can do today to get myself closer to my number one goal? What would that be, and how can I take action on it?
Yeah, that's powerful. That is so, so, so powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
I everything you just said right now, I'm like, I
Yeah.
think about even like I have my virtual vision board on my computer. So in Canva, I created like a little vision board. And so
Yeah.
every day I see that. And a lot of the things that I had put on there, like I've already achieved. And so then it's like,
Mhm.
what am I adding to that list, of goals that I have? But I do think that you being able to see that every day, it's like it's that reminder. It helps you to see those possibilities,
Yeah.
because it's the forefront of your mind. It's in that subconscious where it's just like you're able to better see those opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anybody who wants to go into freelance, this is something that you can do is think of like what are three goals that you have with your freelance? Is it
Mhm.
a specific topic that you would like to write on, such as maybe it's AI, maybe it's fashion, like whatever it might be. Um, what are the top publications that you would like to be published in, and write those down. You can write them down as I am published in Forbes. Okay, now you have your goal. What are three things that you can do to make that happen?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Do you see, I know you said that you have like a lot of friends that are in this space as well, or just in general, because you talk to a lot of people. Do you see that from your perspective that there's a trend in seeing more people like kind of maneuvering into more of the freelancing, kind of even solopreneur type of space?
I think people right now, especially, they're gravitating more towards freelance, or they're gravitating more towards leaving their 9 to 5 positions, whether it's a choice or because because of a layoff. And
Mm,
I think one of the advantages with freelance is, say you are working at a full time company, but you're keeping again your foot in the door of freelance. So you always have that income coming in,
yeah.
and for me, I think that's always going to be really important.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a really great call out. And I think just as the job market continues to change in the way that it is, we're just seeing a lot more people in the job market. And we talked about AI briefly as
Mhm.
well. But to your point, I think people are really starting to kind of open their minds to think about like, how can I make sure from a financial standpoint that I am positioning myself that no matter what happens, like there is a stream, of income coming in, because a lot of us, right, we have responsibilities, and whether it be families or, you're providing for yourself, like, we, at the end of the day, like we have to be able to, to pay whatever bills that we have, or savings and things like that. So I do think people are starting to question that more, and want to learn more about what that might look like for them.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about freelance. That's one of the nice things about content creating is just
Hmm.
thinking of whatever area that you want to go into, something that you can do on your own, maybe without an employer, something that you're responsible for, whatever that might be for you.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have like any kind of final advice as we wrap up in the last few minutes here? Just thinking about people who maybe have kind of one foot in, one foot out, like they're again weighing the pros and the cons. Would you say that there was any specific like deciding factor for you that pushed you into freelancing that you would want to call out for someone else? Or do you think it's just more of like a very personal choice, to each their own sort of situation?
I think it is really a personal choice. Um, my life, being a one person single person, my life is a little bit cheaper than most people, right? People who
Mhm.
might have a mortgage and people who might be married with kids. It is a little bit easier for me to live with an income that's not as stable, right? uh, But I think if I were to leave people with any advice, I think it goes back to the question of what is your goal? Um,
Mm.
like if everybody just opens up a blank piece of paper now, a notebook now, and what is your one goal with freelance, and taking small steps to making that happen and really trying it out for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good call. It's like just take a blank piece of paper, take a notebook, and when you think about freelancing, whatever that looks like for the individual in their respective areas, what is that goal for you? Like, are you trying to replace, your 9 to 5? Are you trying to have supplemental income? Is it just more flexibility? Is it just, you want to make sure that, you always have, income coming in, not having to worry about, well, if something does happen, because there's a lot going on in the workforce right now. And, we're seeing a lot of shifts, like you at least
Yeah.
know that, you have some income coming in. Like, what is that kind of goal of yours and what's important to you, which I think then becomes almost like your why. Like, why are you doing this? Which then becomes,
Yes.
okay, now I can start to see like what I need to do in order to make this a reality for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that. Definitely. What is your why? And I think that's
Mm.
what I was saying with and not being worried to start small, and that is, taking that one step towards freelance if that is something that you do have an interest in.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
this is good. I'm like, let me just double check all, because I'm gonna make sure I got everyone's questions answered. Okay, I missed one question. I know you got a couple minutes. I want to ask this one because this one was on the list. Time management.
Mm.
That's a question that somebody asked. Like, how do you manage your time, especially now that you're working with multiple like editors? Like, do you find challenges in that? And or if you do, like, how do you juggle and balance that?
Yeah, so I would say I kind of view my day and my time as in what I call buckets.
Mm,
So I'm either interviewing somebody, I'm writing an article, I'm editing an article, or I'm pitching it. And it's important for me to make sure that I am I'm doing each of those things each day, right? Uh,
yeah.
and it's really, yeah, I would say it's really meeting my deadlines. I think a lot of my schedule is driven by my deadlines. Like I have an article due Monday. Okay, so it's Thursday. I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing that. So that those buckets, they change in size each day. I don't have to be pitching as much right now at the moment,
Yeah.
but I need to be writing more at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good call out to having those buckets. And do you like time block your calendar then?
I should. I don't do that as well, but yeah, that goes along with it. That's the idea to it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. And what last question I'm gonna just
Yeah.
before we wrap up is, what about writer's block? Like, how do you handle that when you run into writer's block?
Hmm. I think it would be going back to seeing the conversations that people are really having online.
Yeah.
What are people worried about? Especially in the business space, there's always something to be writing about when it comes to the job market, when it comes
Yeah.
to job interviews. What are some of the issues that people are facing, whether they're interviewing people or they're being interviewed? Um,
Mm,
really looking at your core topics. And for me right now, it's job seekers, it's people
yeah.
looking for work, and I feel like if you can find a topic like that where it's kind of broad, there's always something to say.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that. Thank you for, calling that out. And because I'm sure like, that does inevitably come up, but then it's like being able to reference and go back to, just looking at what do people care about right now and the
Yeah.
conversations that are happening. So I think it's a
Yeah.
really great call out there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. Okay. Well, I am going to wrap up the conversation here. Um, if, say, someone wanted to just like send a connection request and have you in their network on LinkedIn, are you open to that? And
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
just want to make sure. And then your LinkedIn URL is.
It's just my name.
Your
If
name. Okay.
that's Yes, and I can definitely send it your way.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Because I'm sure I'm gonna get asked by people in the community like, oh, can we connect? And so I just
Oh,
wanted
yeah,
to.
and if you guys are connected with Erica, I was sharing her post earlier, and I can go make sure that I commented on it, so you can find me there as well.
Perfect. All right. Well, I am so grateful. Thank you so much for just being willing, to come in and have this conversation, to share your story,
Of
because
course, yes.
that is vulnerable, right? It's like you're sharing your journey, but it's one that others can learn from. And so, similar to what you were saying about like having peers, that you can connect with and learn from about, how maybe things that you're coming up against in the freelancing world. It's like this is a new concept for a lot of people where there's people that are interested but they just don't know how, or they don't know anyone that has done it. So being able to hear your story and the fact that you've been able to build your
Mhm.
freelancing is very powerful. So I just want to say thank you so much for being
Oh,
willing to share.
of course, and anytime, Erica, like anything for you first, but also,
Thank,
yeah, this is
thank
something
you.
that I love to speak on. And yeah,
Thank
if
you.
there's anybody out there that you guys can help today, just even a little bit, like please do it.
Love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And with that,
All right.